Chapter 287. Su Dingheng hits Suyuro mother. Suyuro hung her head, her voice weak, not daring to tell her mother that she had spent nearly 5,000 taels in total. Lu Shulan thought that Su Dingheng's anger in the front hall was probably related to Suyuro's spending. Before she could figure out what to do, old Madame Chiu rushed over to inform her. Madam, Marquis has summoned you and second young miss to the front hall. The master is in a great rage, and eldest young miss is already kneeling in the front hall. Su Yingxue was kneeling in the front hall? Lu Shulan took Suyuro to the front hall, but she felt that things were taking a bad turn. Box novel. The halls of the Marquis Manor were exceptionally spacious, and the front hall for receiving guests was imposing and solemn. At this moment, Su Dingheng, in a fit of anger, was pacing around the front hall, while Su Yingxue knelt on the ground in a red robe, looking especially helpless. As soon as Suyuro arrived, Su Dingheng erupted. Men, seize this unfilial daughter and make her kneel. Two burly maids immediately rushed forward and grabbed Suyuro, forcing her down next to Su Yingxue. One of these maids, a relative of old Madame Zhang, used her strength and coincidentally pressed Suyuro onto a shard of porcelain. Suyuro instantly screamed in pain. Ah, it hurts. Daddy, I'm in so much pain. You're only realizing it now? When you were spending money, why didn't you exercise restraint? If it weren't for your sister being unable to access so much silver, one would never have known about it. You two prodigals are close to emptying my Marquis Manor. Su Dingheng was livid and slammed the bill onto Suyuro's face. Suyuro usually protected her face as if it were her lifeline, but now, she was terrified. My face. Daddy, please don't hit my face. Su Dingheng saw that she was still protecting her face at this moment. A gush of blood rushed up from his heart, and he almost fainted. Marquis, please take care of your health. Lu Shulan hurriedly approached to support him, using her gentle hands to caress his chest. But Su Dingheng was furious, and he pushed her away, scolding. You've raised a good daughter. Marquis, please calm down and take care of your health. It's all my fault. Lu Shulan began to shed tears without saying much. And you, Su Yingxue, one tasked you with managing the household, but is this how you manage it? Your younger sister spent so much money, ostensibly for herself, but you were generous enough to share it with uncle and aunt. Why didn't you send some to the entire Jiangdu city? Su Dingheng's flushed face turned ashen. One Suyuro was already causing him heartache, and Su Yingxue seemed to be getting on his nerves even more. Father, it's my fault. However, this issue with my little sister spending so lavishly in Thousand Jiao Pavilion will surely reach the ears of uncle and aunt. My little sister had previously reported a few hundred taels of silver. I thought it was with father's approval that one considered buying some new clothes for my cousins. One didn't expect that father wasn't aware of it. Su Yingxue appeared full of remorse. Su Dingheng widened his eyes. What? She reported several hundred taels of silver earlier. The account book, bring it to me. Su Yingxue promptly had Jilan hand over the account book. And Su Dingheng saw that it clearly stated that Suyuro had spent 500 taels on purchasing furniture from Red Brocade Lane. You unfilial daughter. Su Dingheng slapped Suyuro, and his gaze turned cruel. So it's not your sister recklessly spending money. It's you, this prodigal child, who wants to squander the wealth of my Marquis of Marshall South's manor. Father, one didn't do it. Sister is falsely accusing me. Suyuro covered her face and cried out in grievance, glaring fiercely at Su Yingxue as if she could rip her mouth off. Chapter 288. The end of being vain. She wronged you? All right, men, go to her courtyard and see if there's any furniture from Red Brocade Lane. Bring it all over. Su Dingheng immediately ordered the steward to take action. Lu Shulan's heart tightened. Soon after, the steward returned with a significant amount of brand new furniture. Su Dingheng looked at the pieces of new furniture and pointed angrily at Suyuro. Is your sister falsely accusing you? Is it unjust? The furniture I provided for you previously was of excellent quality. Why did you need to replace so much without reason? Box novel. Suyuro whimpered and didn't dare to speak. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow nonchalantly. She knew that once Su Dingheng investigated, he would realize that Su Yuro had broken the furniture herself, and then bought new items. Su Dingheng felt his blood pressure rising. His face turned ashen, and he clutched his chest. Men, return all these items immediately, along with the clothing, jewelry she purchased, and the gifts she sent to others. Retrieve everything for me. This amounted to over 10,000 taels of silver, a significant sum. Father, I don't want to return them. Su Yuro covered her face. To her, these items were a matter of pride. It was her way of competing with Su Yingxue, something that she had struggled to buy to surpass her. Among them was a luminous pearl on a golden hairpin that was even larger than Su Yingxue's. She couldn't bear to part with them. I'll beat you to death. Su Dingheng picked up a whip and was about to strike her. Lu Shulan rushed over, and the lash hit her instead, causing her skin to break and bleed. Tears welled up in Lu Shulan's eyes. Marquis, if you want to punish someone, punish me alone. It's because I failed to discipline her properly that Ruer behaved this way. It has nothing to do with eldest young Mississippi. Please, Marquis, only punish me. Her mention of Su Yingxue was a reminder to Su Dingheng that it wasn't just Su Yuro who had made mistakes. Su Yingxue had spent even more than Su Yuro. A cold, disdainful smile curled on Su Yingxue's lips. Before Su Dingheng could proceed with any punishment, the steward announced that some guests had arrived outside. Su Yingxue's uncles and aunts had come to express their gratitude and deliver gifts. They thanked Su Yingxue for gifting her cousins with new clothing and jewelry, and expressed their desire for closer family ties and mutual support in the future. Su Dingheng examined the valuable gifts. Importantly, he hadn't maintained good relationships with his siblings. After they had separated households, the distance between them had grown. Despite being the Marquis of Marshall South, the others were doing well. If they could support each other in the future, the benefits would go beyond what money could offer. After some thought, Su Dingheng softened his tone and told Su Yingxue, "You may stand up." Su Yingxue rose to her feet slowly, and Su Dingheng even offered words of comfort. "Yingxue, one acted in anger and punished you earlier. You've been considerate and handled things appropriately." "Thank you for your praise, Father," Su Yingxue responded humbly. "It's not fair. Father, she spent more money than me and even kept some for herself. Father should punish her." Su Yuro shouted at the top of her lungs. "You dare to say that? Can your sister spend the same amount of money as you? She's showing love for her sister, and all your cousins will be grateful to her. What about you? You're only pursuing vanity. You want to show off in front of your sister and receive flattery from your friends." Su Dingheng exposed her without mercy. Su Yuro felt as if her face was being stripped away, inch by inch. Chapter 289. A copy of the account book. Presented to Grandpa, she had never thought that the person who did this was not Su Yingxue, but her daddy who had doted on her since she was young. A sense of resentment rose in her heart. Is it wrong for me to be vain? I'm the daughter of Marquis Manor, so why can't I enjoy the same treatment as Su Yingxue? Why can't one spend the Marquis Manor money? I must spend it. Ruer, you're crazy. Lu Shulan covered her mouth with all her might, and warned her with her eyes not to speak again. Su Dingheng's expression darkened instantly. You dare to disobey me. You. Su Dingheng was so angry that he could not say anything. However, Su Yingxue knew that Su Yuro's words had poked Su Dingheng's anger, and would only make him angrier. Box novel. Calm at this moment, Su Dingheng was feeling the pain of losing money. Su Yuro, it seems that father has spoiled you, allowing you to be so extravagant and not think about the Marquis Manor. Can you earn a tael of silver yourself? Father has painstakingly taken care of this family. Are you going to squander all the savings of the Marquis Manor? Marquis, it's all Ruer's fault. Please don't hold it against her. Lu Shulan covered Su Yuro's mouth with all her might to prevent her from saying anything that would anger Su Dingheng. When she saw Su Yingxue standing calmly at the side, a vicious glint flashed across her eyes. Marquis, Ruer doesn't have eldest young Miss background and ability, so naturally, her horizons can't compare to eldest young Mississippi. I will discipline her strictly in the future. Your intentions are good, but sister has already spent the money. There's no reason to return it. Su Yingxue sighed softly as if she had nothing to do with this. Su Yingxue, you're talking nonsense. I only used 5,000 taels, and the rest was squandered by you. Don't even think about framing me. Su Yuro broke free from Lu Shulan's hand and screamed. Lu Shulan quickly covered her mouth again. Don't you think you've caused enough trouble? Su Yuro's mouth was covered, and she could only whimper. Su Yingxue shrugged innocently. I did spend the rest of the money, but it's all the Marquis Manor's account. If Daddy wants me to bear this money, I won't reject it. After all, benefits were still the most important. When Su Dingheng heard Su Yingxue's words, he immediately turned around and asked, Are you willing to pay this money? Your clinic. He originally wanted to say that the clinic and the grain and oil shop must have made a lot of money. It was better for her to pay this money than for him to lose money. Su Yingxue's eyes were filled with cold mockery, but it disappeared in an instant. She smiled lightly. Of course. I'll go to the clinic tomorrow and ask Manager Qi to fill in the money. I'll put this money in the clinic's account. This was originally a very obvious matter, but Su Dingheng felt that something was wrong. Lu Shulan's brain worked faster than Su Dingheng's. She immediately thought that if she went through the clinic's accounts, the clinic would spread the news. Su Dingheng was a person who cared about his face. He still needed Su Yingxue's money for the expenses of the manor. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Lu Shulan stared hatefully at Su Yingxue. This vicious woman. Su Dingheng quickly understood and immediately waved his hand. No. This money can't go through the clinic's account. This money. He gritted his teeth. I'll pay it out of the Marquis Manor's account. It was all his property. If it was less than 10,000 taels, then so be it. Su Yingxue chuckled. Yes, I will record this down as usual and make a copy. One will order someone to send it to grandfather. What? You? Are you stupid? Why are you giving the accounts of the Marquis Manor to father? Su Dingheng immediately panicked. Chapter 290. Defeat Su Yuro. If his hot-tempered father found out about this, he wouldn't easily forgive him. He had never allowed Lu Shulan to enter Marquis Manor. Su Yingxue's eyes brimmed with innocence. Ever since I took over the Marquis Manor, I've been double-checking all the accounts. Firstly, to prevent any tampering, and secondly, because grandfather is on the front lines, he's also concerned about family matters. I want grandfather to be informed about the situation in the Marquis Manor, to put his mind at ease. Her words were seamless, and no one could find fault with them. Even if Su Dingheng wanted to punish her, he couldn't find a reason. Box novel. However, this debt couldn't be left on Marquis Manor's accounts. After reflecting on his loss, Su Dingheng gritted his teeth. This bill goes to me. You don't need to record it in Marquis Manor's accounts. This. Father, is it okay with such a large sum of money? Su Yingxue appeared worried on the surface, but inside, she was sneering. Su Dingheng's private assets were more substantial. You don't need to ask too much. I will handle this bill. You just focus on managing Marquis Manor's accounts. Su Dingheng looked agitated. Su Yingxue nodded obediently. After Su Dingheng settled the bill, he returned to the front hall. When he faced Lu Shulan and her daughter, he looked livid, as if he wanted to devour them. Although he had expelled Su Yingxue, she stood outside and listened. She could hear Su Yuro's agonizing screams. When she came out with Jilan, the latter was still trembling. Marquis spoils second young miss so much. Yet he's willing to punish her like this. When Su Yuro was dragged out, her skin was torn and bleeding, much like what had happened to Su Yingxue in the past. Su Yingxue coldly curled her lips. Marquis dotes on Su Yuro because she knows how to flatter him. Now he's punishing her because Su Yuro has infringed upon his interests and caused him to lose a substantial amount of money. Hence, no amount of favoritism could offset Su Yuro's mistakes, especially when Su Dingheng was enraged, and Su Yuro deliberately displayed her greedy side to provoke him. This was a major offense. This time, Marquis has suffered a loss due to Su Yuro. He not only lost a significant amount of money, but you also reminded him that even though the master is on the front lines, he's the one who makes decisions in this family. Regardless of Marquis' stature, he can't outmaneuver the master. Jilan admired Su Yingxue. She had come up with the idea of giving the account book to her grandfather. This was the final move to strangle Su Dingheng. Su Dingheng might not be afraid of anything, but he couldn't defy his father. Master had never allowed Lu Shulan to enter the house, and this money had been spent by the mother and daughter, further fueling Master's aversion. Consequently, Master would be even more dissatisfied with Su Dingheng. Xilan's thoughts were correct, precisely Su Yingxue's original plan. However, she didn't explain it comprehensively. Not allowing father to use Marquis Manor's money serves another purpose. What is it? Jilan inquired with curiosity, thinking there was more to learn. A cold glint shone in Su Yingxue's eyes. The entire family property of Marquis Manor belongs only to my brother and me. Others should forget about touching a single cent. Su Yuro and Su Jinxian would be removed. The grudges from her past life needed to be settled in this one. This was the first time Jilan saw such profound hatred in Su Yingxue. She didn't understand and didn't dare to ask, but she knew that no matter what Su Yingxue ordered, she would do it. After Su Yingxue returned to the accounting room, she asked Jilan to relay a message to old Madame Zhang. She told her that Su Yuro had many pieces of jewelry and silver, which if sold, could fetch a substantial amount of silver. Chapter 291. The dead in the clinic. This rumor spread throughout the mansion, and eventually reached Su Dingheng's ears in the evening. Su Dingheng was having his meal in the house with the two top courtesans. When he heard the news, the two top courtesans started to talk again. Su Dingheng immediately waved his hand, and instructed the steward to go to Su Yuro's room, and sell all the valuable jewelry and items in exchange for silver. As the steward took items from Su Yuro's quarters, Su Yuro, in a disheveled state, chased after him exclaiming, "Those are my jewelry! My golden hairpin! You can't take them away! My luminous pearl! Give it back to me! Give it back to me!" Su Yuro couldn't catch up with the steward, and ended up falling into the mud, consuming a mouthful of mud and moss. She was already seriously injured, and her mental state was greatly affected. She collapsed and fainted. Dr. Lu Shulan gave her medicine, but she did not wake up for 2 days. She wanted to seek Su Dingheng's sympathy for her condition, but the two courtesans had received the jewelry Su Yingxue had given them. This left Su Dingheng in a daze, unable to pay any attention to Lu Shulan. Box novel. Calm Lu Shulan stood outside the courtyard, listening to the lascivious sounds coming from Su Dingheng and the two women, grinding her teeth in frustration. She had never felt such intense hatred for someone, nor had she ever encountered such a formidable adversary. Sitting by Su Yuro's bedside, Lu Shulan held her hand with deep concern and vowed, "Ruer, your suffering won't be in vain." She summoned old Madame Chiu to discuss a plan. Old Madame Chiu said, "Currently Su Yingxue is in the limelight. She's the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor, and she has the Emperor's favor. We can't confront her directly. If we want to provide the second young miss with an opportunity to recover, we need to create a situation that will keep the eldest young miss occupied and unable to take care of herself. Only then can you free up your hands, madam." Lu Shulan nodded, agreeing. That makes sense. But the incident that would make Su Yingxue unable to take care of herself, it's only her clinic. Su Yingxue was tough-hearted, and there were not many things she genuinely cared about. Apart from her mother's clinic, there wasn't much to target. Lu Shulan's eyes flickered, and suddenly, a cold light flashed. She whispered something into old Madame Chiu's ear. After Su Yingxue had finished her responsibilities at the Marquis Manor, she intended to visit Vermilion Bird Street to inspect the newly renovated clinic. Liang Jin was also planning to visit personally since the clinic was something the emperor held in high regard. The two of them coincidentally met in front of the clinic. Liang Jin said, "Within half a month, the renovation will be complete. I will then personally request the emperor to inscribe a plaque for Miss Su. The name Tongchang Medical Center will be renowned." Su Yingxue offered a slight bow and replied, "Thank you, Lord Liang, for your diligent efforts on behalf of my clinic." Liang Jin responded, "It's not solely for your benefit. I also hope that the people of Jiangdu City can receive better medical care. Though it's impossible for everyone to be free from illness, if everyone can access healthcare and receive better treatment, they will lead better lives. Su Yingxue expressed her gratitude. With some free time on her hands, Su Yingxue decided to visit the newly opened clinic in the western part of the city. However, upon her arrival, she found a crowd gathered at the entrance, indicating some sort of incident had occurred. Su Yingxue pushed through the crowd to get a closer look, and spotted an elderly woman at the entrance, accompanied by a child, sobbing. The old woman muttered incoherently, "Give my son's life back. This heartless clinic, give my son's life back. My son still has a child, and as an old woman, how can I go on living?" Before Su Yingxue could fully grasp the situation, the clinic's attendants came out and began to expel the crowd. Chapter 292. I want to do an autopsy. He kicked the old lady without any hesitation, saying, "Get lost. Sell your misery elsewhere. Don't disturb our clinic doing business." Even the commoners on the street couldn't stand this barbaric behavior, and Su Yingxue herself rolled up her sleeves. She planned to teach this errand boy a lesson. She had never been to the new clinic before, and was surprised to find such a person working there. Don't use violence. The old lady is naturally heartbroken for her son. Granny, please get up and speak. Don't worry, our clinic is not unethical. A worker in the clinic's uniform came out to mediate, assisting the old lady and showing great care and consideration in his words and actions. Box novel. Calm Su Yingxue's expression softened slightly. Upon closer inspection, she realized that this person was Lai San. Lai San helped the old lady to her feet and noticed Su Yingxue in the crowd. Just as he was about to call someone over, he seemed to hesitate, eventually guiding the old lady to an empty room first. Su Yingxue entered the clinic and found Manager Qi. Manager Qi appeared troubled, most likely due to the old lattice situation. Upon seeing Su Yingxue entering with a somber expression, he whispered, "Miss, did you see what happened at the door just now?" Su Yingxue nodded and inquired, "Yes, what's going on?" Manager Qi sighed and proceeded to provide Su Yingxue with a detailed account of the entire incident. As Su Yingxue listened, her brow furrowed slightly. She was aware that even though this was a branch of Tongchang Medical Center, Manager Qi was meticulous in ensuring everything was done correctly. However, the death of the old lattice son was quite suspicious. The son had been suffering from tuberculosis, a potentially life-threatening illness. Yet, he had been under treatment for many years, and upon coming to Tongchang Medical Center, he passed away after taking just one dose of medicine. With no evidence from the deceased, the old lady brought her only grandson to the clinic's entrance every day, wailing in misery. Even Manager Qi couldn't come up with a solution. The worker who had kicked the old lady seemed to have grown weary of her constant cries, which led to him pushing her away. After a moment of contemplation, Su Yingxue said, "First, let's address the issue with that worker. Deduct his monthly salary, and assign him to handle the transportation of medicinal herbs. If any similar incidents occur in the future regarding patients, we will expel him from the clinic. Tongchang Medical Center cannot tolerate such brutality." Manager Qi nodded and agreed. "Yes, I share responsibility for this matter. One will also have my salary halved this month." Su Yingxue couldn't help but smile with a touch of helplessness and added, "For now, let's set aside discussions about your salary. First, let's consider how to resolve the situation with the old lady. Her only son has passed away, and now she only has her grandson left. She is likely to cause disturbances at the clinic." Manager Qi sighed in front of Su Yingxue. Recognizing that they needed to address the issue at its root, Su Yingxue decided to visit and speak with the old lady. However, the old lady was exceptionally stubborn. She clung to her 5- or 6-year-old grandson, wiping her tears, and declared, "If you don't compensate me, one won't leave even if one die. You're the ones who killed my son." Su Yingxue reassured her, saying, "Grandma, Tongchang Medical Center never causes harm to patients. Could you please tell me where your son's body is? One need to perform a thorough examination to determine the cause of his death." However, the old lady reacted as though she had been electrocuted. She stared fiercely at Su Yingxue and declared, You've killed my son. You won't even leave his corpse in peace. No, one won't allow it. You can't disturb my son's rest. Su Yingxue narrowed her eyes, sensing that something was amiss with the old lady. She tried to reason with her, saying, Grandma, if you won't allow me to examine the body, I won't be able to determine the cause of your son's death. Without this information, our clinic won't be able to address the compensation issue, which wouldn't be in your best interest. Chapter 293. Find the grave. Why can't it be resolved? An eye for an eye, a life for a life, a debt for a debt. You've taken my son's life, so you either give his life back or compensate me with money. I'm a poor, lonely widow, and my only son used to support me. Now that he's gone, if you don't compensate me, I'll go to the county magistrate and file a complaint against you. I'll accuse you of disregard for human life. She was fierce, her eyes red, and she seemed determined to go down with Su Yingxue. But this only fueled Su Yingxue's suspicion. She took a pen and paper, quickly wrote down 2 words, and presented them to the old lady. Do you recognize these characters? The old lady, coming from a humble background and having endured many hardships, had never learned to read or write. She angrily tore the paper apart. I don't recognize them. Don't think that knowing a few words will allow you to bully us. We're not easy to bully. Well, go tell Heavenly Lord. Is that so? Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. Illiterate as she was, the old lady could still use words like disregard for human life. Box novel. This made Su Yingxue suspect that the old lady might indeed have a powerful protector. She instructed Manager Qi to find the old lady a place to stay. Then, she and Ziwei went to the village where the old lady lived to conduct an investigation. Upon arriving in the village, Su Yingxue observed the dire poverty of the old lattice home. The house was bare, and even the walls leaked wind. For a family in such a situation, a member suffering from tuberculosis was indeed a terrible catastrophe. She couldn't help but feel sympathy. However, she couldn't find the corpse of the old lattice son in their home. She initially thought the old lady might be hiding it. Searching the surroundings of the house, she couldn't detect the smell of a corpse. In contrast, Ziwei disappeared for a while, and then returned with information. Found it. Found the corpse? Su Yingxue inquired. Ziwei nodded and led her to a hill outside the village. There were dozens of graves here. Most likely, the villagers had died and were buried here. Moreover, they were buried in an irregular pattern. Graves of all sizes were scattered all over the place. Ziwei brought her to a grave. There was no tombstone in this grave. There was a stick stuck in the grave, and a piece of cloth was wrapped around the stick. It looked lonely. Pointing at the grave, Su Yingxue asked, Is this the grave of the old lattice son? How can you be sure? The cloth on the grave is from her house. Ziwei still held a piece of cloth torn from a bedsheet in the old lattice house. Su Yingxue compared it with the cloth on the stick, and confirmed they were from the same piece. She marveled. You notice such small details? Ziwei's expression remained impassive as he replied, Yes, for the most part. He was brief in his responses, but Su Yingxue understood that it was a fundamental skill for an assassin. When it came to tracking, investigating, and observing, Ziwei excelled in being meticulous and quick. She had only spent a short time in that room. Yet Ziwei found the grave of the old lattice son promptly. However, she couldn't bring herself to desecrate someone else's grave. It was an immoral act she couldn't contemplate, even if she were capable of doing it. Returning to the manor with Ziwei, Su Yingxue couldn't help but furrow her brows. Jilan came to tell her that Chu Yihan had sent someone over. He had let someone prepare a new dish tonight, and invited Su Yingxue over to eat. Although Su Yingxue was hungry, she was still thinking about the clinic and was not in the mood to go to Chu Yihan's invitation. Anticipating her response, Chu Yihan arrived at the Marquis manor, his cold demeanor radiating authority. Without a word, he picked her up and took her to the 9th prince's mansion. Su Yingxue sat in front of a table of delicacies and sighed helplessly. Your Highness, I don't have the mood to eat with you today. The matter at the clinic hasn't been resolved yet. Chapter 294. The clinic was disturbed. What happened in the clinic? Chu Yihan scooped a bowl of soup and carefully placed it in front of her. Su Yingxue pouted. She didn't want to discuss it and ruin her mood, but in front of Chu Yihan, she unconsciously relaxed. The branch of Qingxi Medical Center received a patient with tuberculosis, but he passed away after just one dose of medicine. Now his elderly mother is demanding compensation, and she won't allow me to perform an autopsy. I suspect there's something suspicious about this. Chu Yihan's eyes grew cold. Someone must be deliberately targeting you. I share your suspicions, but without the ability to perform an autopsy at the moment, one can't determine the cause of death. She possesses the medication residue and the clinic's receipt. For now, one can only accommodate her and plan the next steps. Su Yingxue kept this matter in her thoughts. Chu Yihan affectionately pinched her cheek. You've lost weight. Box novel. Calm, his expression was icy, like a sculpted piece of ice. He seemed dissatisfied with Su Yingxue losing weight. Su Yingxue blushed at his intimate actions. She whispered as she ate. Girls look better when they're slimmer. It doesn't look good, Chu Yihan stated seriously. My little dumpling is round. Su Yingxue's face turned crimson. Could he not discuss this? Who hasn't gained weight at some point? However, it would be strange if a man preferred a heavier woman. Su Yingxue sipped her soup and secretly checked her waist and legs. Fortunately, they were still within her control, and she maintained a slender figure. She completed her meal peacefully. The old steward from the prince's mansion politely inquired. Miss Su, are you satisfied? You've enjoyed the codfish tofu multiple times today. Well, be sure to serve it to you again. Thank you very much, Su Yingxue said, touched by the courteous treatment in the prince's mansion. The old steward's eyes crinkled as he smiled kindly. You are the future mistress of the prince's mansion. Naturally, we dare not neglect you. Future mistress? Su Yingxue's face was filled with question marks. Before she could fully comprehend, the old steward had already left with a knowing smile. Chu Yihan's familiar presence enveloped her. He pressed his forehead against hers and asked in a magnetic tone. Why? Don't you want to? You're going to be my future princess. Su Yingxue's heart skipped a beat. This rapid thumping revealed her current state of confusion. She had never imagined that in this lifetime, she would become his princess. In her previous life, she had owed many people, including family and friends. She could wholeheartedly make amends and ensure their well-being in this life. But Chu Yihan, with his immense power and influence, left her unsure of how to compensate him. Will you be my princess for the rest of your life? Chu Yihan asked. Seeing her silence, he leaned closer and whispered into her ear, exhaling warmth along with his passionate heart. All right. After returning to the Marquis Manor, Su Yingxue lay on her bed and replayed the scene where she agreed to Chu Yihan's proposal. The way his eyes lit up was a beautiful sight she had never witnessed in both of her lifetimes. The title of being a princess was an unexpected twist for her. She had never contemplated this possibility, but now she needed to consider it. Since she had decided to be with Chu Yihan, his enemies would now become her enemies. Once Su Yingxue finished managing the account books, she delegated the responsibilities in the residence to Jilan, and instructed old Madame Zhang to keep a watchful eye on them. She hurried to Qingxi Medical Center. The backyard was filled with noise as Lai San led his men to steady the old lady. Manager Qi stood by, earnestly trying to persuade her. Granny son, we understand that you've lost your son. I never said we wouldn't help you resolve this matter. What good does it do to keep causing disturbances? Chapter 295. The unruly people cry bah. You heartless people. You killed my son and now you want to push me into my grave here. And bringing my grandson with me. Even if I die here, I demand justice. Granny Sun shouted while holding the child. Lai San tried to persuade her to return to her room, but she spat at him and didn't allow anyone from the clinic to approach her. Lai San wiped his clothes and grumbled. It's hard to stay clean. He had been begging for many years, and he was usually covered in dirt. Manager Qi had only recently accepted him to work in the clinic, and he didn't want to dirty his clothes. Box novel. Calm, seeing Granny Sun about to spit at Manager Qi, He quickly stepped in to block her. When Su Yingxue witnessed this scene, she understood why Manager Qi had brought Lai San into the clinic. Granny Sun was vulgar, and the clinic's apprentices couldn't handle her. The laborers were also afraid to use force, but Lai San had a way to deal with her. Granny Sun kept spitting at him, but he wasn't afraid. He even used some words that left Granny Sun dizzy and calmed her down. Once she stopped spitting, Lai San allowed Su Yingxue to approach. Su Yingxue stood in front of Manager Qi. Manager Qi cautioned her. "Miss, be careful. This old lady is very stubborn." "It's okay." Su Yingxue's expression remained composed. "Granny Sun, right? Your son is named Sun Wangkai. He's 31 years old this year, and he's your only son. He has been suffering from tuberculosis for 5 years and hasn't been cured, correct?" Granny Sun's dark face showed wariness. "Yes, so what? He could have lived to be 40 years old, but he ate a medicine from your clinic and died in vain. Your deceitful clinic, return my son." As she spoke, she sat down on the ground and began to wail. Her grandson in her arms seemed to react to the scene and cried out for his father. This situation was causing a headache. Su Yingxue brought over a chair, sat down, and allowed them to cry. She sipped tea while waiting, while Granny Sun and the child were already crying to the point of having dry mouths. The child tried to reach for the tea in Su Yingxue's hand, but Granny Sun didn't stop him. Su Yingxue raised the cup so that he couldn't reach it. "You think my clinic's water is safe for your grandson to drink? We have medicines that can harm people." Granny Sun had an odd expression. She immediately pulled the child back and held him tightly, refusing to let him drink water no matter how thirsty he was. "Miss, they had all the food we provided them with yesterday, but Granny Sun is still complaining that there's no meat, and she's not satisfied," Manager Qi whispered in Su Yingxue's ear. Su Yingxue smiled faintly. "That's even more peculiar. If your son died in my clinic, why are you so willing to stay and eat at my clinic? What if you end up dying in my so-called black-hearted clinic? No one will intervene on your behalf." Granny Sun seemed uneasy. "There's the Heavenly Lord in Jiangdu City. Even if I die, someone will stand up for me." She was resolute. This attitude only increased Su Yingxue's suspicion. "You're quite confident. Who instructed you to use your son's life to defame the clinic? What defamation? You're the ones who recklessly killed people with your black-hearted treatments. Do you still call this a clinic? You should open a coffin shop." Granny Sun yelled menacingly. She still wanted to rush out with her grandson and confront anyone who stopped her. She maintained a defiant and arrogant demeanor. Su Yingxue had Lai San at her side, so she didn't resort to unreasonable tactics. Once Lai San managed to calm Granny Sun, Su Yingxue spoke slowly. "If you insist on this and refuse to reveal who instructed you, I'll take you to the capital prefecture, where we'll conduct an autopsy on your son. Let's see if the capital governor lord can compel you to speak." Chapter 296. Chui Han assisted Granny Sun was left stunned. It was unclear if she was frightened or lost in thought. After a moment of being in a daze, she pushed her young grandson aside, propped up her thin and hunched body, and yelled at Su Yingxue. "You're pushing us poor folks into a corner. We might not be able to fight back, but we still believe in justice. The heavens will intervene, my son. Mother is here." With determination, she rushed towards a large medicine vat nearby. Bang! Fortunately, Lai San was quick to react. He rushed in front of Granny Sun and knocked her away, preventing her head from exploding on the medicine vat. Box novel. There were more than 10 medicinal vats filled with medicinal herbs in the backyard. Granny Sun used all her strength to knock against them, and no matter how hard she tried, her head was still bleeding. While she didn't lose her life in the collision, she lay on the ground, with a few wounds on her face. Manager Qi, restrain her, don't let her move. Su Yingxue immediately gave the order. Then she approached Lai San, helping him to his feet and checking his pulse. "Are you okay?" Lai San, with his sallow and emaciated face, appeared somewhat uncomfortable. He withdrew his hand, saying, "Miss, don't let me dirty you. I'm fine." "What do you mean by dirty? You are from my clinic. I'll attend to your injuries first." Su Yingxue knew that Lai San must have sustained bruises from his collision with Granny Sunday. She fetched a bottle of medicine from the counter and handed it to Lai San. Rest well for the next few days. Thanks for what you did. Miss, you're too kind. Lai San was moved to the point of tears. Ever since Su Yingxue saved him from the deadly plague a while ago, he had made up his mind to become a better person. With Manager Qi's compassionate acceptance, he had been studying and living better at the clinic. Now, with Su Yingxue treating him so kindly, he felt a strong desire to repay her kindness. After applying the medicine, he quietly followed Su Yingxue to the backyard. Meanwhile, on Granny Sun's side, Manager Qi had already arranged for someone to apply the medicine. Her old, yellowed eyes remained fixed on Su Yingxue, still filled with enmity. Beside her, the child continued to tug at her sleeve and cry, uttering incomprehensible words. Su Yingxue gazed at Granny Sun, deep in thought. The person who had instigated Granny Sun had thought things through thoroughly. Without examining her son's body, she wouldn't be able to determine the cause of his death. Granny Sun was a strong-willed farmer. If pushed too far, she might even have the courage to harm herself. Su Yingxue realized that if Granny Sun were to die here today, regardless of how she handled Granny Sun's remains, it could become a source of leverage against her. This was indeed a challenging situation. Miss Su, Your Highness sent me with a message. You may proceed with the autopsy. Emochi descended from the sky and conveyed Chu Yihan's order. Su Yingxue was puzzled. An autopsy? Did Your Highness order the grave to be exhumed? She realized it was a mistake to reveal this to Chu Yihan so easily. While she was confident he would help, if he dug up the grave and word got out, it could harm his reputation and be exploited by others as ammunition in the court. Emochi let out a light snort, his expression somewhat proud. Naturally, Your Highness conducted it openly. Openly? Su Yingxue's lips twitched. Digging up someone else's grave and calling it open? Truly a divine act by Your Highness. Emochi, noticing the peculiar look in her eyes, decided to tell her after indulging in his moment of self-satisfaction. Chapter 297. Solve things. Emochi noticed the perplexed expression on her face, and after satisfying his desire to boast, he explained. Your Highness selected an auspicious location, invested a considerable sum, and informed the villagers to relocate the graves of their departed loved ones. The villagers voluntarily participated in the exhumation and, incidentally, dug out Sun Wenkai's grave. Su Yingxue's eyes brightened. Your Highness is truly remarkable. Of course. Emochi proudly raised his chin. Had there ever been a moment when his master was not impressive? Emochi thoughtfully informed Su Yingxue. Your Highness arranged for the villagers to relocate the graves in your name, Miss Su. Now with Granny Sun, you can proceed with the autopsy. Su Yingxue nodded without delay. She instructed Manager Qi to accompany Granny Sun and the child and swiftly departed for the village beyond the city. Lai San followed as well, ensuring he stayed close to Granny Sun to prevent any impulsive acts on her part. The group soon arrived at the village outside the city. Here, dozens of households, all impoverished tenants, had contributed efforts to move their departed relatives' graves. Some had even received compensation, motivating them to work even harder. Especially when they were moving their relatives' graves and were paid, they naturally worked even harder. Granny Sun came to the hill and saw that the graves here had been dug out. She exclaimed anxiously, "What's going on? Why are you all digging up these graves?" "Old Madam Sun, you just returned and might not be aware. There's a benevolent soul in the city who bought a piece of land for a new cemetery and helped relocate the graves of all the deceased from our village. Everyone is busy." Granny Sun's expression suddenly changed, and she reacted with urgency. You've gone too far. Who allowed you to disturb my son's grave?" "My son." The well-meaning neighbor, who was pushed by Granny Sun, stumbled and rolled his eyes in response. "Madwoman, you don't appreciate a kind deed. Let's go, let's do our work. Father's grave hasn't been buried yet. Ignore this madwoman." The man carrying the coffin accidentally bumped into the man's arm. The four of them hoisted the coffin and proceeded to the new burial site. Granny Sun rushed to her son's grave, which had already been dug up, and a fine-quality coffin lay on the ground. Granny Sun immediately hugged it and glared warily at Su Yingxue. "None of you can touch my son. Don't even think about it. You can't bully us orphans and widows just because you have more people. Son, mother is powerless. You want rest and peace, and you're going to be exhumed." "My son," Su Yingxue led her group, but before they could draw near, Granny Sun was already wailing, drawing the attention of numerous onlookers. These villagers were from the same community and often interacted with one another. Seeing Granny Sun in such a pitiful state on the ground, a few strong and youthful men brandished their shovels and hoes in Su Yingxue's direction. "Who are you? How dare you harass Granny Sun?" "Brothers, it's all a misunderstanding. We're from Tongchang Medical Center. Today, we're here to escort Granny Sun back and assist in relocating her son's grave. Please don't harm anyone." Lai San was well versed in dealing with people, especially those from the lower strata of society. Upon hearing his words and recognizing that he wasn't a high-ranking official, their wariness lessened. Su Yingxue cast an appreciative glance at Lai San before returning her gaze to Granny Sunday. "Granny Sun, your family situation is presumably not ideal, and this coffin couldn't have been purchased without 20 taels of silver. How did you ensure your son's peaceful rest in this coffin?" Chapter 298. Su Yingxue's magnanimity. Granny Sun revealed a vulnerability and became flustered. "I found it. It's not worth much." "Found a coffin?" "Grandma, in this day and age, people may find money lying around, but who finds such a large coffin? Did you perhaps find it at a coffin shop? Which coffin shop would be willing to discard such a fine coffin?" Manager Qi chimed in. They didn't deliberately lower their voices. As a result, the young men who were helping Granny Sun also expressed confusion. "This coffin appears valuable no matter how you look at it. Granny, where did you find it?" They were curious and wanted to see if there was anything else to be found. Go. Why are you picking up coffins? Has your son passed away? Do you need a coffin?" "My son was poisoned by this group of people. If you want to find something, go ask them for the coffin, especially this young lady here. She's the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor and oversees it. She's loaded with money. Go find her." Granny Sun couldn't restrain herself and said many things she shouldn't have. Su Yingxue chuckled. "Granny Sun, from the moment we met, I never disclosed my identity. You didn't even ask my name, yet you somehow know that I'm the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor, and that I oversee the Marquis Manor? The person who instructed you must be from the Marquis Manor, right?" Granny Sun's eyes darted around nervously. She recalled what someone had taught her and shouted. "Everyone knows about the clinic opened by the Marquis Manor's legitimate daughter in Jiangdu City. Previously, there was a deadly plague that killed many people, and now it's taken my son's life. Bullies. We, the common folks, can't contend with this group of high-ranking officials. We're suffering." Everyone present, much like Granny Sun's family, hailed from humble backgrounds. Some of the men had tattered clothing. Granny Sun's words resonated deeply with them, and coupled with their resentment of the wealthy, they pointed their hoes toward Su Yingxue. "You people of privilege who live comfortably have no qualms about causing deaths. What more do you want now? If we don't report you to the Heavenly Lord, you'd better leave and stop mistreating Granny." Su Yingxue's brows were tightly knitted. When this group of people became rude, they could not make a move. Otherwise, it would only make the other party hate them even more. However, since the other party was a young man, he was also reasonable. She might as well lay the matter out. She walked in front of the hose wielded by these strong men, held her head high and proclaimed, "I am indeed Su Yingxue, the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Marshall South's Manor, and I am a doctor at Tongchang Medical Center. Granny Sun's son passed away after taking medication from my clinic, and I deeply apologize for this. But I, Su Yingxue, swear on my life that my clinic will never treat human lives callously or intentionally harm any patient. That's why I'm here personally to open the coffin and examine the body to provide justice for the deceased son Wang Kai. If he indeed died due to medication from my clinic, then one Su Yingxue will personally atone for it with my life. Tongchang Medical Center will take care of Granny's son and her descendants for the rest of their lives. Su Yingxue's words left everyone astounded. The legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor being willing to pay with her life for an ordinary farmer was already bewildering. Furthermore, taking care of Granny's son and her descendants for their entire lives was an exceptionally responsible offer. Are you truly here for an autopsy? The young man who had stopped Su Yingxue earlier put down his hoe and asked. What else can I do? The deceased deserves respect, but it's only by ascertaining the cause of his death and why he died that we can provide justice. Su Yingxue's words were forceful and determined. Although these farmers weren't educated, they understood the logic. Two burly men approached Granny's son and advised her. Granny, don't stand in her way. Miss Su is a good person. Well, let her perform the autopsy. If your son was truly harmed by her clinic, we won't leave you to suffer alone. Chapter 299. Open an autopsy, go away. What do you, these foolish men, understand? That woman has a heart as cruel as a snake and scorpion. She killed my son, and now she wants to destroy his body and obliterate all evidence. Granny's son sat down on the ground, her cries filled with despair. Poor my son. I'm powerless, and now, even in death, you are to be desecrated by these people, just so you can't rest in peace, my son. Granny's son's wails were heart-wrenching, leaving the villagers unsure of how to proceed. Su Yingxue's expression darkened slightly. Granny's son, if you insist on preventing me from opening the coffin to examine the body, I will go and invite Lord Liang from the capital prefecture. He is known for his impartiality, and everyone in Jiangdu City is aware of it. He won't favor me and will ensure justice is served. No. Granny's son waved her hands in horror. The person who had looked for her had instructed her not to cause a ruckus at the government office, and not to let anyone open her son's coffin. Grandma, you keep insisting that your son was murdered. Isn't reporting it to the authorities the best course of action? The honest villager scratched his head, not comprehending Granny's son's actions. Su Yingxue stood nearby, showing no urgency. The simple villagers here had a knack for exposing Granny's son's deceit. You're all blindly jeering. You've all been bewitched by that woman. Oh my. Granny's son might lack other talents, but she excelled at making a scene. She stood in front of the coffin, and anyone who approached her was met with her threat to throw herself into the coffin. This made the villagers hesitant to approach her. Even Su Yingxue couldn't publicly apprehend her. As things started looking dire, just when Su Yingxue was in a difficult situation, a woman dressed in rough clothing rushed out and picked up the child next to Granny Sunday. She knelt beside her, wiping away tears, and tried to convince her. Mother, please don't be stubborn. Let Miss Su perform the autopsy. Wang Kai would feel uneasy if he saw this from heaven. Why have you returned? Granny's son shoved her daughter-in-law away, scolding her in their local dialect. Filthy thing. Didn't I tell you to leave? Don't come out until I'm dead. Mother, Wang Kai is gone and now it's just you and the child. Where should I go? Wang Kai didn't have many days left. Miss Su's clinic didn't harm anyone. Please don't act irrationally. The woman cried, her tears flowing sincerely. Granny's son, filled with anger, shouted, What nonsense are you saying? The person had promised her an ingot of gold when the task was completed. It was real gold. She had never seen anything like it in her entire life. As long as she could hold that gold in her hands, her grandson could have a good life for the rest of his days. Even if it meant giving up her own life, it would be worth it. Mother, take a look at this. In a corner that no one could see, the woman slipped something into Granny's son's hand. Granny's son was taken aback and then became visibly embarrassed. Granny's son, are you still going to stop me? Su Yingxue asked, noticing the change in her expression. Granny's son's face turned ashen as she stepped aside. She remained silent. Her face was grim, but she no longer wept. Although Su Yingxue was unsure where this daughter-in-law had come from, no one prevented her from opening the coffin and examining the body. Several young adults from the village, who remembered her as the benevolent person who helped relocate graves, even volunteered to open the coffin for her. Sun Wenkai's corpse was removed, and Su Yingxue donned gloves to conduct a meticulous examination. She concluded that Sun Wenkai did not have many days left to live, and he had indeed consumed the medicine prescribed by Tongchang Medical Center. However, the cause of death was his unauthorized self-increase of the dosage, which led to an untimely demise. Chapter 300. Catch the mastermind. After Su Yingxue finished her examination, she placed the corpse back. She provided the villagers with silver and instructed them to bury Sun Wenkai in a new cemetery. As they watched Sun Wenkai's coffin being carried away, Manager Qi was filled with questions. "Miss this. Why didn't you leave the body behind for Lord Liang to inspect?" "No need. Disturbing the deceased once is already disrespectful." Su Yingxue also asked him to buy some offerings to place on Sun Wenkai's new grave. At this moment, she visited Granny Sun's house. This was her second visit to the destitute wooden house. Su Yingxue's gaze carried a chill. Granny Sun was afraid when she saw her. Although her earlier outburst of crying had momentarily disoriented Su Yingxue, she had ultimately unraveled the truth. "Granny Sun, what is the truth? When do you plan to come clean with me?" Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, and her gaze carried a strong sense of coercion. Granny Sun had previously dared to make a scene with Su Yingxue, assuming her daughter-in-law was still around. But now that their secret was exposed, she shrunk like a quail. "Eldest young miss, you are formidable. Don't lower yourself to the level of us lowly people. Let our family of 3 live a peaceful life." Su Yingxue smiled. "Do I look like a fool to you?" The child in Granny Sun's arms shook his head and said firmly, "No. Be good. Here is some candy for you." Su Yingxue produced a bag of sweets from her pocket and handed it to the child. Suddenly, Su Yingxue sensed a dark figure moving behind her. She turned and said, "I'll buy it for you after I'm done." The dark figure discreetly retreated. Granny Sun and her family observed Su Yingxue's actions with curiosity. Su Yingxue had no intention of explaining further. She simply inquired, "Do you want to live in peace, or do you want to argue with me?" Granny Sun's daughter-in-law had been cautioned not to confront Su Yingxue, so she promptly responded, "Miss Su, we won't argue with you. We'll tell you whatever you want to know. My mother, she was manipulated. Someone promised us gold, persuaded us to expedite Wenkai's death, and coerced Granny to visit the clinic to extort money from you. Why did you reveal everything?" Granny Sun pulled her daughter-in-law closer and whispered, "That person warned us that if the truth came to light, our entire family would be killed. Mother, can't you see? Miss Su is even more frightening than them." Granny Sun's heart trembled as she observed Su Yingxue. This young miss, who appeared to be about 15 or 16 years old, shattered her preconceptions. She had believed that young girls would be the easiest to manipulate and would crumble under her cries. However, this young girl exhibited remarkable composure. "Do you remember what the person who instructed you looked like?" Su Yingxue took a step closer. The pressure emanating from her sent the child into a candy-dropping shock. "I remember, but I don't know who she is," Granny Sun replied, frightened by Su Yingxue. She huddled on her brick bed. "That old woman is so fierce. She warned that if the truth was revealed and one dared to confess to you, both my grandson and one would be killed. I promise that you and your grandson won't be harmed. However, one need you to describe that person's appearance. For example, how old does that old woman appear? What's her physique like? What color were her clothes? What did her face look like?" Su Yingxue gestured roughly. She understood that Granny Sun was illiterate and wouldn't be able to draw a portrait, so she asked her to provide a verbal description. Chapter 301. Report to the authorities. Arrest him. Granny Sun made her best effort to remember, and then described it to Su Yingxue with gestures and words. That woman was in her 30s or 40s, looking fierce and with a mole on her face. She was wearing purple clothes and even had jewelry on. We, the villagers, had never seen such opulence. When the woman gave her a silver ingot as soon as she arrived, Granny Sun was left stunned. Later, the woman mentioned that Granny Sun's son, Wangkai, didn't have many days left to live. Once Granny Sun sorted out this matter, the woman would give her another gold ingot. If she passed away in the clinic, the woman would give 2 gold ingots to her daughter-in-law. Granny Sun thought about her age and her son being gone, leaving no one to earn a living. Her grandson would go hungry. If she could trade her and her son's lives for her grandson's lifetime of security, she was more than willing. Therefore, after discussing it with her son, they agreed to this arrangement. Little did they know, "I'll send people to protect your daughter-in-law and grandson, but Granny Sun, you must come with me to the Marquis Manor. I need you to identify the woman," Su Yingxue stated calmly. Granny Sun's daughter-in-law was still somewhat frightened. "Miss Su, my mother didn't intend to harm you. Please spare her." Even if she was coerced, she still caused harm, Su Yingxue asserted. Granny Sun's family was undoubtedly pitiable, but when they couldn't survive, they turned to harming her and the clinic. That was still a wrongdoing. Granny Sun's daughter-in-law continued to wipe her tears. Granny Sun looked at the child in her arms and comforted her. "As long as my grandson is fine, it doesn't matter whether I live or die." Su Yingxue left the room and instructed Manager Qi to arrange for Granny Sun's grandson and daughter-in-law. She then covertly had Granny Sun transported back to the Marquis Manor. Manager Qi asked with concern, "Miss, why don't we report this to the authorities? We have concrete evidence this time, and we can certainly uncover who harmed you." "I already know who it is," Su Yingxue said with a sharp twist of her lips. "Who?" Manager Qi's eyes widened, and he watched Su Yingxue's expression, venturing a guess. "Is it someone from the Marquis Manor? Are they deliberately harming Miss?" Su Yingxue didn't clarify but instead instructed him, "Go to the capital prefecture and file an official report. Describe the case clearly, stating that the culprit is within the Marquis Manor. Ask Lord Liang to come to the Marquis Manor and handle the case justly." "Yes. We'll do it immediately." Su Yingxue and Manager Qi went their separate ways. Upon her return to the Marquis Manor, Su Yingxue remained silent. Later that night, Jilan came to report on the situation within the Marquis Manor over the past 2 days. During these last 2 days, Marquis didn't visit the courtesan Belle's quarters, and instead rested in Lady Liu's Qingxin court. "Miss, is Marquis favoring Lady Liu and her daughter once again?" Jilan furrowed her brow with worry. Looking at the account book, Su Yingxue let out a cold laugh. "When has he not been partial?" "During this period," Jilan began to say, but realized that Su Dingheng had recently shown particular appreciation for Su Yingxue. Upon further thought, it was because Su Yingxue had been managing the Marquis Manor efficiently and successfully, which earned her Su Dingheng's praise. But it wasn't from the heart. Xilan's gaze turned icy, and she expressed her resentment. "Marquis has never genuinely cared for you, Mississippi." "Yes, because of my mother," Su Yingxue replied as she closed the account book, her eyes flashing with a sharp edge. She had only recently come to a realization. In her previous life, her foolishness accounted for 99% of her disaster, but the remaining 1%, her father's bias, played a significant role. Su Dingheng was pleased when her older brother excelled, and he would praise her when she did well. However, she could tell that Su Dingheng had never truly loved the siblings. Chapter 302. Your Highness, the only person he cared about and pampered to the bone was Su Yuro. Even if he was disappointed in Su Yuro now, if Su Yuro died, he would cry very sadly. On the other hand, if she had died, it would not have been the same. Perhaps, Su Dingheng would have scolded her, and then pretended that he had never had a daughter, because he had never loved her mother. Therefore, he did not love any of her mother's children. Ha! This cruel reality made Su Yingxue laugh with a sense of desolation. Boom! There was a sudden sound outside the window. Jilan quickly went to check, and then there was silence. Su Yingxue stood up cautiously. A white figure fell from the door. It was Chu Yihan, who was as graceful as a celestial being. After Su Yingxue recovered from her surprise, the corners of her mouth unconsciously curled up. "Your Highness." "Yes." Chu Yihan let out a low grunt and then closed the door behind him, pressing her against the door. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. Oh, Su Yingxue was taken by surprise, and by the time she could react, she couldn't resist his invitation. His passionate breath enveloped her, and she fell into his arms, her whole body feeling weak. The two of them were intimate for a while, and when Chu Yihan couldn't hold back any longer, he separated from her. He sat down on the side and poured himself a cup of tea to calm down. Cough. Su Yingxue stood there awkwardly, not daring to get too close to him. Under the bright lights, the man's handsome features, deep facial contours, sexy jawline, and seductive gaze were on full display without any restraint, carrying a hint of coldness in his intense eyes. His thin lips had a glistening sheen, making them extremely tempting. Before the blush on Su Yingxue's face had a chance to fade, it deepened. Based on her bodous response, Su Yingxue could tell that she was craving his touch. Cough cough. Take a seat. Chu Yihan said in a low, magnetic voice, which had a unique allure. Su Yingxue was about to sit in front of him, but he pointed to a chair further away. Sit there. Su Yingxue grumbled. Why did he want to keep her so far away? She couldn't even appreciate his handsome face up close. She felt unhappy. But who dared to resist Chu Yihan? Su Yingxue pouted unhappily and sat in a chair far from him. After a while, Chu Yihan finally spoke in a low voice. If you come closer, I'll want you. Su Yingxue was speechless. What kind of bold words were these? Your Highness, you should be more restrained. Su Yingxue bit her lip, but the smile on her lips couldn't help but show. If you laugh again, I'll take action right now. Chu Yihan's eyes turned cold, and the desire in his eyes sent shivers down one's spine. Su Yingxue immediately jumped up from her chair and retreated behind a screen in the inner room. Your Highness, please calm down. We're not married yet. Even if she had agreed to be his princess, he couldn't be impulsive. Do I need you to remind me? Chu Yihan's tone started to sound a bit arrogant through the screen. Your Highness naturally doesn't need me to remind you, but one want to thank you for your help today. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy to clear my name. Su Yingxue's voice carried a hint of coquettishness, which made Chu Yihan's heart skip a beat. You know? Chu Yihan's lips curled into a smile. Other than your Highness, who else could have discovered Granny Sun's vulnerability so quickly, and even persuaded her to reveal the truth? Even though your Highness didn't appear in person, you were always concerned about me. Even if one can't see you, I can still feel it. Chapter 303. Liang Jin came to the Marquis' residence to investigate again. These words may have sounded like flattery, but Su Yingxue said them from the depths of her heart. Other than Chu Yihan, who else could care about her, protect her, and pamper her to this extent? When she wanted to sleep, he would give her a pillow. When she needed care, he would immediately appear and hug her. When she encountered any difficulties, he would help her solve them properly, all without hesitation. Even if someone had the same capabilities as Chu Yihan, they wouldn't possess his precious affection. I will always protect you. Su Yingxue had heard this phrase more than once, but every time, it warmed her heart. She pushed the screen aside and discreetly glanced outside. Chu Yihan had already opened the door, preparing to leave. Taking advantage of the moment when he was distracted, she ran up behind him, hugging him tightly from behind, and stood on her tiptoes to rest her head on Chu Yihan's shoulder. She whispered, Your Highness, one like you. This sentence, like a kitten's paw, gently scratched Chu Yihan's heart. Su Yingxue closed the door, but Chu Yihan lingered, gazing at her silhouette reflected in the window and unwilling to leave. Over the years he had encountered countless women, each with their unique beauty and various forms of admiration. They fawned over him, worshipped him, and admired him, but he remained indifferent. Only Su Yingxue's declaration of liking him had the power to make his heart stir for a lifetime. Su Yingxue, one love you. One love was enough for a lifetime. The next morning, just as Su Yingxue entered the account room, Jilan came in with a joyful expression. Miss, Lord Liang has arrived, and Marquis is receiving him in the front hall. Su Yingxue nodded and said, You quietly hand over Granny Sun to Liang Jin's people. Jilan acknowledged the command and left. Su Yingxue gazed at the sky and called out, Ziwei. A dark shadow descended soundlessly, not even disturbing a single fallen leaf. The purple hue in his eyes carried a hint of determination, always ready to obey his master's orders. Su Yingxue instructed him, guard all the doors of the Marquis Manor, and ensure that none of the residents escape. Ziwei nodded and replied, yes. He promptly vanished like a gentle breeze, not stirring a single leaf. Su Yingxue walked leisurely to the front hall. It was evident that her father did not look pleased in the presence of Liang Jin. His expression could even be described as dark. If given the choice, Su Dingheng's least desired colleague to encounter would be Liang Jin, especially within his residence. And it had only been peaceful here for 2 days. He had just recovered from being served by Lu Shulan last night. Marquis Su, had there been no report, I would not have troubled the Marquis Manor. Liang Jin maintained a stern and impartial expression. It was just that he had not told the whole truth. He had no desire to come to Su Dingheng's residence. Su Dingheng's heart ached, and he had a headache. Lord Liang, who within the Marquis Manor has been involved in wrongdoing. If he knew, he would certainly deal with that individual. I received a report that someone instructed the villager granny's son to falsely accuse Tongchang Medical Center of using medication to cause a patient's death. This person is from the Marquis Manor, Liang Jin declared coldly. The moment he mentioned Tongchang Medical Center, Su Dingheng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be Su Yingxue again? For some reason, he instinctively associated this with Lu Shulan and her daughter. However, recalling that he had reconciled with Lu Shulan the previous night, he spoke sternly, Lord Liang, do you know who this person is? If someone from my Marquis Manor is wrongly accused, I cannot accept it. Chapter 304. Let Mother Chiu go. I have brought the criminal granny son to the door today, and especially came to let her identify the person. Marquis only needs to gather everyone in Marquis Manor, and let granny son identify that person. Liang Jin stated impartially. Su Dingheng's expression darkened. Men, go and find eldest young miss. He wanted to find out what else this unfilial daughter was dissatisfied with. She was in charge of the Marquis Manor's power. Yet the matters in her clinic could still be brought to the manor. Su Yingxue arrived very quickly. She first bowed to Su Dingheng, and then greeted Liang Jin. Liang Jin and Su Yingxue were quite familiar, but he felt that she had undergone some changes. It's only been a few days, and Miss Su seems to have become more mature after managing the family affairs. Su Yingxue smiled lightly. Lord Liang praises me too much. I have disturbed Lord Liang again regarding the matter of the Marquis Manor. I am truly guilty. I am in charge of all the cases in Jiangdu capital. This is my duty. However, it seems that Miss Su did not participate in the clinic's matter this time. Liang Jin had some doubts. This time, the person who came to report the case was the manager of Tongchang Medical Center. He brought the witness to the court and described the cause and effect. He did not mention Su Yingxue at all, which surprised him. I have been in charge of the family recently and have never gone to the clinic before. Su Yingxue's voice was calm. Liang Jin nodded his admiration for Su Yingxue growing. Her medical skills were outstanding. She could open a medical center outside and manage family affairs inside. Her ability was extraordinary. Su Dingheng listened from the side. Su Yingxue was not involved in this case, so he was relieved. As long as she didn't participate, it was probably the other servants in the residence, and had nothing to do with Lu Shulan and her daughter. Now that Su Yingxue was in charge, he handed this matter over to her. Yingxue, assist Lord Liang in investigating the case. Su Yingxue folded her hands at her waist. Yes, father. She first ordered Jilan to instruct the stewards of each courtyard to gather the servants of each courtyard and wait outside the hall. Then, she ordered the 3 divisions and 6 chefs to be on standby and line up according to the order for Liang Jin to bring people to identify them. The first to be recognized was the person in Su Yingxue's courtyard. Liang Jin had his way of investigating the case. He asked for a clean room and asked people to go in and interrogate them one by one before coming out. Thus, after interrogating the 3 divisions and 6 chefs, Su Yingxue called Liang Jin for lunch. In the afternoon, the people in her courtyard were the first to be identified. In Sunset Court, old Madame Qiu had already packed her belongings and came to bid farewell to Lu Shulan. Lu Shulan frowned. Old Madame Qiu, why were you so careless this time? Why did you reveal a flaw? Old Madame Qiu's eyes darkened. One was careful, but one miscalculated that old lady. I only left for a moment, and she used a dog's body to replace her son's body and burned it in front of me. She made me think that her son's body had been cremated. When one found out, the people from Tongcheng Medical Center had already opened the coffin and examined the corpse. Fortunately, you took leave yesterday and went home. Now that Su Yingxue is about to find out, you should leave Jiangdu City quickly and never return. Lu Shulan gave old Madame Lu some silver notes. Old Madame Qiu had served her since she was young. If it wasn't for the fact that Su Yingxue was too fierce, she definitely wouldn't have left her. After old Madame Qiu kept the money, she patted Lu Shulan's hand earnestly. Madam, this Su Yingxue is powerful. You must be careful when you fight with her. Lu Shulan glanced at Su Yuro, who was lying on the bed, and was so weak that she had shut herself in. Hatred suddenly appeared in her eyes. I will be careful. I'll return the pain that Su Yingxue has inflicted on us 10 times over. Chapter 305. Be unreasonable. Old Madame Qiu left reluctantly. She quietly walked to the corner door of the woodshed and was about to leave. Before she could take a step, a black shadow landed in front of her. The man's long and narrow eyes were devoid of emotion, and his black scabbard carried a bloodthirsty chill. Old Madame Qiu's legs trembled, and she fell to the ground. Su Dingheng had taken a nap and woke up, but Liang Jin hadn't finished his interrogation yet. Everyone in Su Yuro's courtyard had been investigated, but Liang Jin insisted that even if Su Yuro was bedridden, he would have his female subordinate bring the witness to question her directly. He was known for his fairness, and not even the emperor could challenge him, let alone Su Dingheng. Seeing that everyone in Marquis Manor had been questioned, Su Dingheng asked Liang Jin, Lord Liang, have you found any results? Liang Jin organized a thick stack of documents and pulled out a sheet with 5 names listed on it. He pointed to Su Dingheng and said, These are the 5 individuals not present in the Marquis Manor. One must personally meet them today. Su Dingheng was feeling a bit of a headache. Su Yingxue stepped forward to explain the situation. 4 of these individuals can return to the manor today for Lord Liang to interrogate. However, one of them remains missing. Who is it? Su Dingheng's brow furrowed slightly. Su Yingxue hesitated before revealing. It's the Madam of Lady Lu. She asked for leave from the manor yesterday to take care of her family. I sent someone to her house just now, but we couldn't find her. Su Dingheng looked at Lady Lu and asked, Were you aware of this? Lu Shulan's voice was gentle and soft. Old Madame Qiu has been with me for many years, and my elderly mother has been bedridden all along. One felt sorry for her, so I allowed her to return for a few days to take care of her mother, instead of having her come now. Why don't we wait for her to attend to her mother for a few days, and then go to see Lord Liang? No. If she is within Jiangdu City, please ensure she is brought to me. Liang Jin asserted. He was known for his no-nonsense approach, never letting anyone off, and that's what made him highly respected. Lu Shulan's eyes welled up with tears as she bit her rosy lips. If Lord Liang insists on this, 1 a.m. willing to accompany Lord Liang back to the capital prefecture, until old Madame Qiu is returned. After her passionate night with Su Dingheng, she knew that he would never let her go. Su Dingheng immediately voiced his opposition. Lord Liang, you have already interrogated everyone in the Marquis Manor. Only one person remains unaccounted for. Please show some leniency. Once old Madame Qiu returns after tending to her mother, I will personally bring her to the capital prefecture. Su Dingheng was more than generous. Liang Jin's expression remained stern. Even if she has left Jiangdu City, I will apprehend her today. In her heart, Su Yingxue gave Liang Jin a thumbs up. Her willingness to report every incident wasn't in vain. Liang Jin's impartiality never disappointed anyone. Upon hearing this, Lu Shulan burst into tears. She was so fragile and didn't say a word, making people's hearts ache. Su Dingheng held her and consoled her. "All right, Laner, you are not to blame for this. Lord Liang is being too unreasonable. Lord Liang, if you wish to find this person, please go look for her yourself. I won't accompany you any longer." Su Dingheng expressed impatience, believing that the woman in his arms was the most important thing at that moment. Liang Jin's eyebrows slightly furrowed. Su Yingxue thought about it. Ziwei was very efficient, so she suggested, "Lord Liang, it's already late. Why don't you return to the residence first and find her tomorrow?" There was a surprise waiting for him at the door. Chapter 306. The case is clear. Unexpectedly, Liang Jin was very forthright and commanded his subordinates, "Men, go to the woman's address and bring her here. I won't leave Marquis Manor until I've seen her today." Su Yingxue was surprised by his action. "Lord, you are quite assertive," she thought. Su Dingheng almost choked. Where on earth did these stubborn principles come from? Lu Shulan's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. She glanced at Su Yingxue. No matter how deep her facade, she wouldn't be able to locate old Madame Chiu. Su Yingxue pretended not to notice Lu Shulan's eye signals. With a calm gaze, she inspected her action, waiting quietly, as if she were indifferent to the world. Liang Jin's subordinates took the portrait and returned with a person in less than half an hour. 2 bailiffs brought old Madame Chiu before Liang Jin. "Lord Liang, this person matches the portrait perfectly and was found around Marquis Manor. Her movements were mysterious." Liang Jin looked up and saw a match with the portrait recorded in Marquis Manor. He turned to Su Dingheng. "Lord Marquis, is this the old Madame Chiu from your residence?" Su Dingheng, having spent a significant amount of time with Lu Shulan, couldn't possibly not recognize old Madame Chiu. However, there was a hint of bewilderment in his eyes. "It's her, but why the panic?" Yes. Old Madame Chiu opened her mouth repeatedly but couldn't utter a single word. Lu Shulan's heart skipped a beat, and she blurted out, "How is that possible?" Old Madame Chiu's whereabouts were well concealed, and she had already left Marquis Manor. How could she have been recaptured? It was Su Yingxue. Lu Shulan cast a glance at Su Yingxue with a concealed glare, but Su Yingxue maintained her usual calm. As for her eyes, they were as profound as the sea, revealing nothing. "Bring her out." Liang Jin waved his hand, and Granny Sun was brought forward. Granny Sun was shackled and excitedly pointed at old Madame Chiu. "It's her. She gave me money to frame someone, causing my son to die prematurely, and even attempting to burn him." Granny Sun's eyes were brimming with tears. She knew she had wronged someone, and her fate would not be pleasant. She was willing to confess her sins, but was determined to implicate the one who had manipulated her. Su Yingxue had told her that if she didn't want her grandson to hang his head in shame for the rest of his life, she needed to guide him onto the right path. Old Madame Chiu couldn't speak, but she gritted her teeth and didn't deny Granny Sun's accusation. Liang Jin turned to Su Dingheng. "Marquis, with the case now mostly clarified, 111 take this person back to the capital prefecture for questioning. If there are any developments, I'll have my men inform Marquis Manor." Su Dingheng looked displeased. "Please proceed, Lord Liang." From the moment he saw old Madame Chiu, a sense of disgust welled up in his eyes. His gaze, cold and piercing, swept over Lu Shulan. Lu Shulan didn't even have the chance to meet his gaze before watching old Madame Chiu being led away by Liang Jin. Old Madame Chiu conveyed to her through her eyes that she wouldn't betray her, and to rest assured. However, she couldn't have anticipated that if old Madame Chiu were to shoulder the blame alone, her future. Liang Jin departed with his entourage, and Marquis Manor returned to its usual tranquility. Today, Su Yingxue didn't stand out and arranged everything in the mansion properly. Su Dingheng looked at her with a much gentler gaze, and even patted her shoulder. "You've worked hard today. Father, you've had a tiring day. You should head back and rest early," Su Yingxue said obediently. Seeing Su Dingheng sigh in the direction of Lu Shulan, she suggested. Father, if you're worried about Lady Lu, why don't I accompany her back? She can have some peace. Chapter 307. She wants to dig out the truth. Alright, I'll leave it to you. Su Dingheng was previously unsure of how to interact with Lu Shulan. When Su Yingxue brought it up, he took the opportunity to relax with the two courtesans. Su Yingxue walked in front of Lu Shulan and said politely, "Please." Lu Shulan's handkerchief had already been twisted into a deformed shape. Old Madame Chiu's capture undoubtedly had something to do with Su Yingxue. But she couldn't question Su Yingxue, and she couldn't reveal herself. Su Yingxue even offered to escort her back home. This was like a sword with a hint of ostentation thrust into her chest. I've heard that old Madame Chiu has been taking care of you since you were young. I believe your bond with her must be very deep. Su Yingxue said as she caught the faint fragrance of flowers wafting through Marquis Manor. What are you trying to say? Lu Shulan was already gnashing her teeth in hatred, but had to be cautious with her words. It's nothing. I'm just expressing my sympathy for you. Old Madame Chiu is the person closest to you. Why would she make such a mistake? Why would she provoke Tongchang Medical Center? What could she possibly gain from falsely accusing a clinic like this? Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows, her tone carrying a sharp edge. Lu Shulan sneered and said, "Perhaps this clinic has committed some egregious act that has angered both heaven and man." Su Yingxue had put pressure on the mother and daughter. Shouldn't they be delighted? The translation you provided is largely correct, but I have made a few minor adjustments to improve clarity and fluency while maintaining the past tense and your typesetting. You think so, but I believe this may be the result of your actions. Su Yingxue chuckled. Her expression was remarkably relaxed, and her eyes were as bright as spring. What she conveyed to Lu Shulan was not only the pride of a victor, but also her freedom. Lu Shulan was now like a cautious mouse in front of her, carefully concealing her expressions and avoiding any signs of carelessness. However, Su Yingxue could freely laugh as she pleased. Sometimes, harming the enemy didn't require using physical force. Striking at the heart was the most ruthless. Su Yingxue escorted Lu Shulan to the entrance of Qingxin Court. Lu Shulan's grip on the handkerchief never once relaxed. As Su Yingxue turned to leave, she whispered in her ear, "I don't know if you're familiar with criminal law, but for old Madame Chiu's involvement in ordering someone's murder, even if she's not beheaded, she will undoubtedly be severely beaten and imprisoned for several years. I'm just not sure how long someone of old Madame Chiu's age can endure." Lu Shulan had been holding back, biting her lower lip until it bled. Once Su Yingxue had walked far away, she rushed towards the courtyard's tables and chairs, kicking them over and shouting with red eyes, "Su Yingxue, one won't let you get away with this." She had harmed her daughter and her family. She wanted her to pay with her life. When Su Yingxue returned to the courtyard, she deliberately checked the courtesan's courtyard. Inside, there was laughter and merriment, and Su Dingheng was being served with great enthusiasm. She departed with a sardonic expression on her face. Jilan had been with her all along. She was so cautious that only after they returned to her room did she carefully ask, "Miss, you kept a low profile today, but you've made Lu Shulan suffer greatly. You should be happy, so why do you not seem happy at all?" Teaching Lu Shulan and her daughter a lesson should have been satisfying, even if it didn't make you happy. However, Su Yingxue's face only displayed a heavy expression. "Because what I desire apart from their lives is the truth." Su Yingxue's eyes held a profound depth. Taking two lives might be easy, but uncovering the cause of her mother's death was not so straightforward. She could make Su Yuro angry, but Lu Shulan was exceptionally patient. To learn the truth behind her mother's death, she couldn't afford to let her guard down. She had to push Lu Shulan to her limits to have a chance to unearth the truth she sought from her. Chapter 308. Motherfucking Modern Medicine. On the following day, Liang Jin sent a messenger with the report, explaining the process of resolving the case. Old Madame Chiu had been found guilty of ordering harm, and Granny Sun had been convicted of plotting for financial gain. Both had received sentences, with old Madame Chiu facing 3 years of imprisonment. Upon hearing this news, Lu Shulan fainted on the spot. Su Dingheng, showing compassion, consoled her for an extended period. After Lu Shulan regained consciousness, she left without saying farewell, taking Su Yuro back to Yaoguang Garden. When Su Dingheng learned of this, he promptly pursued her. Lu Shulan in a pitiable tone said, "Marquis, the people around me have committed such despicable acts. I can't face you, Marquis, with this disgrace, nor can I continue residing in Marquis Manor. Marquis, please don't dwell on me." "Laner, what are you saying? You are my woman, and Ruer is my daughter. How can one not be concerned when you leave Marquis Manor?" Su Dingheng was deeply worried. Lu Shulan softly nestled in his arms, yet despite his words, she refused to return with him. In disappointment, Su Dingheng returned to Marquis Manor by himself. While he couldn't blame Su Yingxue, Lu Shulan's departure was unquestionably connected to her. However, Su Yingxue had efficiently managed the entire Marquis Manor. Even if he wanted to express his anger towards her, he couldn't find a reason. Therefore, when he encountered Su Yingxue, he merely walked past her with a sullen expression. Su Yingxue, accompanied by Jilan, had intended to report on recent expenditures in the household to Su Dingheng. However, Su Dingheng was too quick, and she couldn't catch up with him. Jilan felt some indignation. "Miss has worked diligently in managing Marquis Manor. Yet the Marquis is ignoring you in this way." Su Yingxue cynically curled her lip. When the woman he loves leaves the manor, of course he can't be happy. Nevertheless, Lu Shulan's tactic of retreat was something Su Yingxue admired. She was truly the woman who had controlled Su Dingheng for so many years. To push her to the point of breaking down would require some effort. Lu Shulan, along with Su Yuro, moved out of Marquis Manor. The manor naturally calmed down, and there was nothing specific that required Su Yingxue's attention. She entrusted everything to Jilan and old Madame Zhang. When she had free time, she delved into Medicine King Valley to study medical arts. Her mother had left behind medical books that were well worth contemplating. The few books she had recently read were about modern medicine. While she didn't know the origin of this medical knowledge, it was markedly distinct from traditional Chinese medicine. Modern medicine involved surgeries, referred to as surgery in her mother's records. A few of the substantial medical books explained surgical procedures. They started with dissections. Su Yingxue recalled the gloves and masks she had made earlier, which were likely similar to the surgical scalpels depicted in the medical books. All these seemed to have been developed by her mother. Her interest in the subject deepened. Although she couldn't create something as sophisticated as the illustrations, she had probably crafted a set of surgical instruments herself. She acquired several rabbits and conducted dissections in Medicine King Valley. Little ginseng floated over with its long beard and, seeing her hands stained with blood, spoke in a tone laced with disdain. "Why is a young lady like you so violent? You won't be able to find a husband in the future. This is called surgery. My mother's medical books state that we must open the body and examine every muscle and nerve in detail. It can treat incurable diseases that our medical practices can't." Every time she read medical books, Su Yingxue's admiration for her mother grew. This was because the knowledge her mother had left behind was something she had never heard of before. She had a passionate pursuit of new things. Even though little ginseng, with its tens of millions of years of existence, had never heard such a statement before, it was no longer surprised. After all, it had lived for an exceedingly long time and witnessed countless things. Chapter 309. Please, let me see your highness. However, when it saw that Su Yingxue had dissected a large number of rabbits, it felt it was a waste. It then hung up one or two and tossed them into a small hole behind the spiritual spring. Su Yingxue noticed that there were fewer rabbits. When she went over to investigate, she found that little ginseng had used the rabbit corpses she had dissected to feed the poisonous insects. "You're raising so many little cuties." Su Yingxue's eyes widened. The spiritual spring exuded a pleasant and fresh aroma, while in the small hole behind it, spiders, centipedes, and scorpions were happily feasting on the rabbit corpses. "You find them cute too, don't you?" You think it's cute too, right? They've always been eating grass, but one thought it would be a waste to leave these rabbit corpses here. So one gave them a change of taste. Why didn't you tell me that you as a ginseng have a penchant for raising poisonous insects? Su Yingxue gazed at the scorpions in the small hole. They had vibrant and colorful patterns on their backs, which were aesthetically pleasing. However, as a doctor, Su Yingxue knew that these spiders and scorpions carried various deadly toxins. Life? Oh no, I mean ginseng life is just too dull. And don't you think they're adorable? More importantly, their bodies are full of treasures. If you're stung, healthy people will die, but some sick individuals might get better. It has unexpectedly beneficial effects. Little ginseng proudly waved its whiskers. Su Yingxue smiled. They're indeed precious for a poison versus poison approach. However, she wasn't a poison doctor, so she didn't have the time to delve into these poisons for now. She only fed the rabbits to the creatures when she had spare moments. Over time, they became quite friendly with her, even crawling onto her for play. 10 days later, the Tongchang Medical Center was fully restored. Chu Mingyuan personally presented the plaque, and Su Yingxue organized the clinic's reopening. As she returned to the clinic, she found herself swamped with work, with no time to rest. After examining one patient, she called out, "Next!" Liana rushed in, her eyes brimming with tears. "Miss Su, please save our princess." Su Yingxue's expression turned somber as she followed Liana to the princess manor. After talking the princess' pulse, Su Yingxue furrowed her brow. Is this the work of Chu Xiuwen? Sheng Ping's tragic and ashen face spoke of deep despair. She didn't answer but conveyed everything through her expression. That vile scum! Su Yingxue cursed. She had never seen such a disgusting man before. Not only did he bully women, but he also made them suffer so much that they wished they were dead. Sheng Ping could no longer give birth, but now she was ill and could not stand it. Coupled with her long-term depression, it was not a sign of longevity. "Dr. Su, I beg you, I want to see Your Highness again." Tears welled up in Sheng Ping's pleading eyes. Su Yingxue pursed her lips. "For now, you must focus on your recovery. Other matters can be considered after you regain your health." "Dr. Su, one know my time is limited, but one beg you to let me see Your Highness again. Please help me deliver this sachet to him. I simply want to see Your Highness once more before one depart this world." Sheng Ping's frail hands tightly gripped Su Yingxue's arm. Su Yingxue's beautiful face turned cold. "How can you be certain that he will meet you? If it were anyone else pleading with him, he might not agree. But you, Your Highness has fallen for you. If you speak on my behalf, he will undoubtedly come to see me." The softness in Sheng Ping's voice tugged at the heartstrings. However, Su Yingxue wouldn't let her principles waver. "You know that Your Highness has feelings for me. But do you know that one also have affection for him?" Chapter 310. Why don't you see for whom this king agreed? Su Yingxue's eyes were clear and bright. She didn't hide anything and had the same fierce and domineering aura as Chu Yihan. Sheng Ping managed a bitter smile. "One can see. Since you can see it, you should know that your move is not a wise one," Su Yingxue remarked. She couldn't bring herself to anger or dislike the woman before her. Yet she couldn't muster any pity either. "I know, but one have no other choice." Sheng Ping stood humbly, kneeling in front of Su Yingxue. "The only thing I can gamble is your mercy," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. Before the fall of the Yu Kingdom, she had been pure and noble, the embodiment of moonlight in the Yu Kingdom. But with the kingdom's collapse and the loss of its prosperity, she became the princess of a fallen nation. Still, she carried herself with grace, refusing to yield even in the face of humiliation. She had never contemplated an easy way out. Not until now, when she faced death, did she realize that her aspirations remained unfulfilled, and she would not rest in peace, even in death. "Then you've lost. One have no mercy, especially for women without dignity." Su Yingxue coldly withdrew her hand, fetched the medicine, and then left the princess manor. In her anger, she didn't notice that a pair of malevolent eyes were watching her as she left. Chu Xiuwen, with a limp, his eyes filled with fury, muttered to himself, "How could she be here?" Was she connected to that wretched woman, Sheng Ping? As Su Yingxue pondered Sheng Ping's words, she knew that Sheng Ping's health condition only had a few more years to go. Having been given a second chance at life, what she detested most were undignified pleas. Despite being a woman, wasn't it possible to achieve everything through one's efforts? But considering Sheng Ping's knowledge of her mother's identity, she had delivered medicine to Sheng Ping before making a detour to the 9th prince's mansion. In the study, Chu Yihan was engrossed in reading. Su Yingxue could enter the mansion without any hindrance. As she stepped into the study, she saw Chu Yihan holding a book. He had opened a window, and the golden silkwood emitted golden threads in the sunlight, surrounding him like a shimmering golden aura. His deep-set features and elegant profile were captivating to Su Yingxue. Holding the medicine, she stood at the door entranced. When she came back to her senses, Chu Yihan had already walked to the door and carried her in. "Bringing medicine for me?" Chu Yihan glanced at the medicine packet in her hand, and his spirits lifted. "This is for Sheng Ping," Su Yingxue answered honestly. Chu Yihan's expression remained indifferent, his interest waning. "May first ask your highness for a favor?" Su Yingxue asked with some trepidation. "Of course." Chu Yihan responded directly without questions. Su Yingxue chuckled. "In that case, would your highness accompany me to the princess manor?" She didn't dare directly request that Chu Yihan meet Sheng Ping. After all, she wasn't entirely comfortable with this matter. But Chu Yihan immediately understood. "She wants to see me?" Su Yingxue lowered her head in guilt, thinking her silence was probably an admission. Chu Yihan's aura suddenly became oppressive. He tersely said, "Let's go." Su Yingxue's heart suddenly felt heavy. You agreed to meet Sheng Ping so readily? Have you forgotten who I am agreeing to?" Chu Yihan's face turned cold, and his eyes were like ice as if they could pierce through anyone. Su Yingxue lowered her head. "I'm not insisting that you agree. At least, your highness could have refused, right?" Chapter 311. Her mother was a noble of the Wei dynasty. "I will not reject any request you make, but you must understand one thing. I have no personal connection with her. Even if she dies now, it won't affect me." Chu Yihan's tone was icy, showing no sympathy. "Are you really that heartless?" "That's it. I have no feelings for her." A touch of anger crossed Chu Yihan's face. He almost wished he could peer into Su Yingxue's thoughts. Su Yingxue stood there like a rabbit plucked of its tiger fur, obediently silent. Chu Yihan kept his gaze on her, his clear eyes softening as he explained. "I conquered the Yu kingdom out of loyalty to the great Qing dynasty, and I saved Sheng Ping out of honor. One have treated her justly and faithfully. However, I feel nothing for her. I don't owe her anything. So even if Sheng Ping were to die in front of him, he wouldn't be moved. Those who are irrelevant to me have never been a concern for me." Chu Yihan's face remained cold, yet his eyes burned with a fiery intensity. Su Yingxue knew that this fiery passion was reserved for her. Her face was red, and her hair was hanging lightly on her skin. "I understand. I will convey your message." "Very well." Chu Yihan tenderly ruffled her hair, filled with fondness. His little dumpling also had times when she was silly, and she was quite cute when she was silly. Su Yingxue shook her head, realizing her request for Chu Yihan to see Sheng Ping was a foolish idea. Even her dying wish was not to be fulfilled, because the thing that made women suffer the most was not being heartless, but rather unrequited love. Su Yingxue went to the princess manor alone. When Sheng Ping heard that Chu Yihan refused to come to see her, she spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. She leaned against the headboard weakly, her eyes filled with heartbreak and despair. "Why is he so heartless to me? He wouldn't even come to see me one last time." "Princess, there has always been a misunderstanding. He has never felt any affection for you," Su Yingxue calmly explained. She didn't want to hurt Sheng Ping, but she needed to be honest. "But he saved me. He helped me and brought me back to the great Qing dynasty. Sheng Ping's voice faltered as tears welled up in her eyes. "At the very least, he should remember me. Is it so impossible for me to see him one more time?" "It's not about the impossibility but the fact that it won't happen." Su Yingxue shattered her illusions without mercy. Princess, you can't force someone who has never loved you to hold you in their heart. To him, you are insignificant, but to you it's a heart-wrenching pain. She had experienced this in her past life. For me, it's not just heart-wrenching pain. Xingping laughed bitterly. From the moment she saw Chu Yihan, she felt as though she had fallen into an icy lake. She had always used her own heart to warm herself, but after all these years, she finally understood that her heart was too weak and small to thaw an entire icy lake. I'm sorry. I can only treat your body. I can't heal your heartache. Su Yingxue brought the medicine to Xingping. Xingping tilted her head and drank the medicine down, her disheveled hair adding a touch of melancholic beauty. Some of the medicinal liquid lingered at the corner of her mouth. Her despairing eyes gazed at Su Yingxue. Dr. Su, I will tell you everything about your mother's background. She's actually from Great Wei. Puff! A surge of blood rushed up, and Xingping coughed up several mouthfuls of dark, purplish blood. She lay against the headboard as Su Yingxue hurried over to support her. Princess, please don't get agitated. Steady your breath. Chapter 312. Sudden death. Xingping. She held Xingping's hand and realized that she had been poisoned. She picked up the bowl and smelled it, finding out that the medicine she had given Xingping was poisoned. Dr. Su, your mother was a noble from the Great Wei dynasty, and she looked exactly like you, very beautiful. So beautiful. Unfortunately Xingping, don't speak yet. Su Yingxue inserted a silver needle into her chest to stabilize her heart and prevent the poison from spreading. But Xingping looked at her as if relieved of a heavy burden. Miss Su, my life is coming to an end, but one don't want to implicate you. Please leave. Who harmed you? You mentioned that my mother was a noble of the Great Wei dynasty, and if she was from the Great Wei dynasty, why did she come to the Great Qing dynasty? Hasn't the Great Wei dynasty searched for her? Su Yingxue was worried about Xingping's life and had many questions about her mother's background. She had a falling out with the nobles, so she left. Puff. The continuous vomiting of blood cut off Xingping's words. All the words she wanted to say were stuck in her mouth. There was a trace of regret in her beautiful eyes. She hadn't been able to tell Su Yingxue the whole truth before her death. But she was grateful to Su Yingxue. Princess? Princess? Princess Xingping. Su Yingxue held her lifeless body. The poison was too strong, and there was no time for her to save Xingping. The silver needle she had inserted into Xingping's chest had turned black. She had inadvertently administered a lethal dose of red-crowned crane herb, taking Xingping's life in an instant. Princess! Lianer screamed when she saw the scene. She accused Su Yingxue and cried while hugging Xingping. Princess, you haven't met ninth prince yet. How can you leave? Su Yingxue's heart was in turmoil. How could there be red-crowned crane herb in the medicine she had given Xingping? How dare you, Su Yingxue? You dare to plot against the princess of Yu Kingdom. Chu Ziyuan's voice was cold. He had a group of palace guards block the door in a domineering manner. He went forward to check Xingping's pulse and had a faint smile in secret. The princess is dead. He turned around and stared at Su Yingxue with a dark expression. Su Yingxue, today, the emperor was going to meet the princess, and she was to be bestowed in marriage. How dare you poison her? You're audacious. I didn't. Su Yingxue's face was livid. She knew she had been set up. Dr. Su, our princess trusted you so much that she never checked the medicine you sent. This medicine was personally prepared for you. How could you poison the princess? Lianer cried bitterly. She had been with Xingping for many years, but she hadn't been able to meet Chu Yihan. I have no reason to harm the princess. One didn't put poison in the bowl. As for the third prince, Su Yingxue narrowed her eyes. You've arrived just in time. Her words were tinged with sarcasm. Chu Ziyuan's eyes darkened. If I hadn't arrived in time and you had escaped, wouldn't the princess have died in vain? Now, with both witnesses and evidence, Su Yingxue, you will have to defend yourself in front of the emperor. Chu Xiuwen waved his hand, and the palace guards escorted Su Yingxue away. As Su Yingxue was being led out of the princess manor, she saw Ziwei holding a knife. She shook her head at him. He couldn't impulsively save her, or he would be caught as well. In the imperial study, Su Yingxue knelt in front of Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan was furious. Su Yingxue, what grudge do you have with Princess Shengping? You dared to poison her to vent your anger. There was disappointment in his eyes. He had expected her to become a top female genius doctor like her mother. But unexpectedly, Emperor, I didn't kill Princess Shengping. I have no reason to do this. Su Yingxue's face darkened as she quickly analyzed the entire situation in her mind. She had been preoccupied with Shengping's wish to meet Chu Yihan, and had forgotten to conceal her whereabouts when entering the princess manor. Chapter 313. Framing Su Yingxue. Then, what's the matter with the princess? Her princess manor was only visited by you. Why would you go to the princess manor to diagnose her? If the princess was ill, there were imperial physicians in the palace to treat her. Chu Mingyuan rebuked angrily. Su Yingxue's medical skills were undoubtedly excellent, but she shouldn't have meddled with just anyone, especially Shengping. She was the princess of the Yu Kingdom, and her existence was crucial for maintaining the loyalty of the kingdom's subjects. Yet now, she had died from poisoning. If the people of the Yu Kingdom found out that they had been incited by an enemy nation, it would undoubtedly lead to unrest. Su Yingxue's expression remained cold. If the emperor truly cared about the princess, she wouldn't have fallen seriously ill. There was no hint of mockery in her words. Had it not been for Chu Ziyuan's cruel treatment, Shengping would never have sought her for treatment. She wouldn't have begged her, and she wouldn't have met a sudden demise. Chu Mingyuan slammed his hand on the table in anger. You poisoned the princess and now dare to blame me. I did not poison the princess. Su Yingxue reiterated. Father, Su Yingxue is ruthless. She takes advantage of her status as the legitimate daughter of the Marquis manor, and your trust to avoid confessing. However, the palace guards who accompanied me to the princess manor, and the princess maidservants can testify that the princess was poisoned to death by Su Yingxue. Chu Ziyuan's words were harsh as if he were standing up for justice. Su Yingxue's lips curled coldly. Does the third prince have no one to rely on? Is the death of Princess Shengping unrelated to you? Rather than saying she had killed Shengping, it was more accurate to say that Chu Xiuwen, the scoundrel, had pushed Shengping to the brink of death. Chu Xiuwen ignored her rebuttal and reported to Chu Mingyuan. Father, I have brought the princess maidservant. She also testified that the princess was poisoned to death because she sought treatment from Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue remained composed as she knelt in the royal study. Lianer was brought in, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She stared at Su Yingxue as if she were her mortal enemy. As she passed by Su Yingxue, she couldn't help but lash out. Su Yingxue, the princess is so pitiful. Why are you treating her this way? Why can't you grant her wishes? Why can't you let Shengping leave without any regrets? Shut up. Chu Mingyuan shouted angrily. I'm asking you, what ailment did Shengping have, and why didn't she summon the court physician? Instead, she went to Su Yingxue for treatment. What grudge does she have with Su Yingxue? Su Yingxue wouldn't kill without a reason, but Chu Mingyuan needed to understand that there couldn't have been any grudge between her and Shengping. Lianer's eyes were filled with resentment. The princess was manipulated by Su Yingxue. She confided in Su Yingxue, but due to jealousy, Su Yingxue poisoned the princess. Explain clearly. The princess. She fell in love with the 9th prince and missed him so much that it made her ill. She believed that Miss Su could cure her lovesickness. However, Miss Su was having an affair with the 9th prince and couldn't stand the princess, so she poisoned her. Lianer cried. Her eyes filled with intense hatred for Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue's eyes flashed with coldness. By twisting the truth like this, would your princess be at peace in the afterlife? The princess was murdered by you. In the afterlife, she only wants to seek justice for herself. Lianer's eyes were filled with bitterness. Su Yingxue remained silent, but Chu Mingyuan was furious. Su Yingxue, you had an affair with the 9th prince? Is that why you killed Princess Shengping? Chu Mingyuan angrily threw the inkstone. The veins on his forehead throbbed. Su Yingxue closely observed Chu Mingyuan's change in demeanor. His anger now was much more fervent than when he first learned of Princess Shengping's death. Chapter 314. His relationship with the emperor. He cared more about her and Chu Yihan. Su Yingxue remained silent until Chu Mingyuan finished venting his anger. Then he waved his hand and threw her into the prison. The cell was dimly lit, and Su Yingxue sat cross-legged on the stone bed with a slight frown on her forehead. Shengping's sudden death after drinking the medicine was undoubtedly intentional, and Chu Ziyuan's timely arrival made it hard for her to believe that he wasn't involved. The most troublesome part was someone using Lianer to reveal her relationship with Chu Yihan. She never thought that their relationship would be so visible to others. What complicated matters were the relationships between Chu Mingyuan and Chu Yihan. Their brothers, Su Yingxue. Chu Yihan's voice, tinged with anger and worry, rang out. Su Yingxue immediately jumped off the bed. Your Highness, 1 a.m. here? Chu Yihan split open the cell door with Qing Frost's sword and pulled Su Yingxue into his arms. Are you hurt? Su Yingxue shook her head, and a dimple formed on her cheek when she smiled. Do you think I'm someone who gets hurt so easily in your eyes? Chu Yihan tapped her nose. You're not easily hurt. You're easily foolish. Su Yingxue pursed her lips and lowered her head. It's rare for me to be foolish. One just didn't expect that someone would be audacious enough to harm a princess like Shengping. And even frame her. It was one thing if they wanted to harm her, but they had implicated Shengping's life. If you had ignored her, would you still have been framed? Chu Yihan ruffled her hair, his tone filled with affection and a hint of helplessness. Su Yingxue obediently accepted his reprimand. Compared to her usual fiery nature in front of him, she was surprisingly well-behaved now. Chu Yihan gave her a firm head rub. What are you thinking about? Who knew how many cunning thoughts were brewing in that little head? I was thinking about your relationship with the emperor, Su Yingxue said cautiously. If it weren't for Shengping's death and her involvement with the emperor, she wouldn't have asked. Do you want to know? Chu Yihan's eyes darkened, exuding a chilling air of danger. Su Yingxue nodded. Yes. Su Yingxue didn't find the prison particularly cold, but after hearing Chu Yihan's revelations, she couldn't help but shiver. The power struggles within the royal family were far crueler than most people imagined. His elder brother was missing, his mother had been killed, and he had become the most powerful figure. Yet he had to constantly watch his back. As long as he lived, the emperor would not let him be. As for the grudge between him and the emperor, Su Yingxue smiled bitterly. She had yet to uncover her mother's background, but she seemed to have been drawn into another whirlpool. What was she to do? Are you afraid? Chu Yihan gently kissed her forehead. Su Yingxue cocked her head and playfully asked, If I say I'm afraid, will your highness stop liking me? No. Chu Yihan's eyes darkened. One will protect you with my life. Su Yingxue's hands were firmly held by him. The warmth they brought made her smile. I will do the same. If someone wanted to use her to harm Chu Yihan, then that person was as good as dead. Chu Yihan wanted to take Su Yingxue out of prison, but Su Yingxue didn't agree. Whoever framed me here, I want them to beg for my release. Chu Yihan's eyes sparkled with admiration. It seems I was overthinking? Your Highness, feel free to think about me more. I don't mind. Su Yingxue winked playfully. Chu Yihan left the imperial prison and entered the palace with his sword. Chapter 315. Exposing Chu Ziyuan's libido. Every time he entered the imperial study, no one dared to serve him, and it was the same this time. However, when he came out this time, there was a loud bang in the hall, and Chu Mingyuan fell. Lan Ling rushed in to help Chu Mingyuan up and shouted, Call the imperial physician. Su Yingxue rejected Chu Yihan's offer to bring her out of the imperial prison. Instead, she snuck into Chu Ziyuan's mansion with Zi Wei. In his previous life, although Chu Qingye had a high position and was at the peak of his power, his brother did not have a good ending. Before she died, Chu Xiuwen had already been crippled by himself. The reason was none other than that he was greedy for beauty and went to his father's harem. This matter was supposed to be discovered 2 years later. But Su Yingxue decided to help him act earlier. Chu Xiuwen thought that he would be able to rest easy after throwing Su Yingxue into prison. He celebrated with his mother at Fengzhou Palace at night and returned to the manor drunk, ready to grab a maid to warm his bed. There was a red figure in front of his room. Her back was beautiful and graceful, and it immediately aroused the lust in his eyes. He threw himself at her. "Silly young girl, it's you tonight." Bang! Su Yingxue dodged, and he crashed into the door frame. "Bitch." Chu Xiuwen covered his flushed face and cursed. "How dare you?" The woman in front of him was as beautiful as a fairy. She was dressed in red and looked domineering. She was gorgeous but not demonic. He widened his eyes in surprise and then became even more stunned. "Su Yingxue, why are you here? You. How dare you break out of prison?" Chu Xiuwen was about to run away. He wanted to report Su Yingxue to his father. She had escaped from the imperial prison with a guilty body. Now that his father had a reason, he would punish her severely. Clang! A black knife was stabbed into the wall in front of him, just a hair's breadth away from his nose. If he had run too fast just now, his nose would have been cut off. Ziwei pulled out his saber. Chu Xiuwen stood in front of him as if he was in a cold hell. Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "If the third prince surrenders himself to the emperor and admits that you poisoned Princess Shengping and incited her maid to frame me, one can spare your life." "Spare my life? Su Yingxue, are you crazy? You're the one carrying a life. What do you have to threaten me with?" Chu Xiuwen shouted, wanting to call the people in the residence over, and also wanting to intimidate Su Yingxue. However, Su Yingxue sneered and told him, "Everyone in your residence has been drugged by me. As for what one can use to threaten your highness, does your highness think this undergarment is enough?" When Chu Xiuwen saw the item in her hand, his soul trembled. "You? How did you get this? How did you know? Was Su Yingxue a ghost?" Something that even his father did not know. She in the Hall of Diligent Government, Liang Jin said solemnly, "Emperor, if you don't explain Princess Shengping's death, I'm afraid that the anger of the old people of Yu Kingdom will not be appeased. Recently, there have been repeated provocations by the people of Yu Kingdom around Jiangdu City. They are asking why they did not treat Princess Shengping well. As spoils of war. It was also the emotional support of the tens of thousands of people in Yu Kingdom. Shengping had an extremely important role. Now that she had suddenly died, the people of Yu Kingdom were not convinced. Even the court had repeated criticisms. Emperor, I heard that Princess Shengping's death was caused by Su Yingxue. Please investigate. If it's true, you must punish Su Yingxue and give the people of Yu Kingdom an explanation." A civil official said, "Emperor, one think that there are many suspicious points in this matter. Please examine it carefully. Su Yingxue's medical skills are outstanding, and she would not have the intention to harm others." Lin Outyin spoke up to plead for Su Yingxue. Chapter 316. Chu Xiuwen confesses guilty. General Lin, you're favoring Su Yingxue. Lin Outyin maintained a strong and mighty expression. So what if I'm showing bias towards Su Yingxue? She cured my family's century-old hereditary disease. Can't I request a favor from my savior? Unable to distinguish right from wrong. Unable to discern loyalty from treachery. If you utter one more word, I'll beat you. In court, Lin Outyin almost fought with the person who impeached him. There were many who spoke up in support of Su Yingxue. Chu Minjiwan's expression remained less than favorable. Finally, when Lin Outyin was on the verge of violence, he intervened. Minister Su, what are your thoughts? Su Dingheng felt the weight of two piercing gazes upon him, laden with a dire threat. Chu Mingyuan was attempting to ascertain Su Dingheng's stance and testing his loyalty. Su Dingheng knelt and spoke with pursed lips. Emperor, although one failed to properly guide my daughter, Su Yingxue has always been. Father. Chu Ziyuan's somber voice interrupted Su Dingheng's words. He approached Chu Mingyuan with a forlorn look on his face. Father, the death of Princess Shengping has nothing to do with Su Yingxue. What did you say? Chu Mingyuan narrowed his eyes, anger brewing within them. Su Yingxue was personally apprehended by Chu Xiuwen, and he was the one who later reported this to Chu Mingyuan. Now he was claiming that Su Yingxue had not caused her death? Princess Shengping's death is shrouded in mystery. One implore Father to investigate and vindicate Su Yingxue. Despite their long-standing discord, Chu Xiuwen was now seeking leniency for Su Yingxue. The civil official who had previously argued with Lin Outyin quickly took cover. Chu Mingyuan shouted with a stern expression. He instructed Lan Ling to bring Chu Xiuwen to the imperial study, and flung a stack of memorials at him. What is going on with you? You were the one who apprehended her, and now you're requesting her release. Do you think you can act without consequences just because you're my son? Father, it was me who caused Shengping's death. Please forgive me. Chu Xiuwen kowtowed heavily, leaving a trace of blood on the cold floor with his forehead. What did you say? Chu Mingyuan had just collapsed the day before. Upon hearing these words, he slumped onto the dragon throne. Chu Ziyuan's face bore the shame that Su Yingxue had etched into it. If not for Su Yingxue's threats, why would he confess? Her words from the previous night were still ringing in his ears. If you don't admit to the emperor that you killed Shengping, I will throw this jade concubine's undergarment in front of the emperor, and have him investigate who had an affair with his concubine. Moreover, they didn't just have an affair. It involved half of the harem. All the while, when he committed these outrageous acts, he had been discreet. Those concubines were aware of it, but this was a capital offense, and they wouldn't dare to divulge it. Yet, Su Yingxue had somehow managed to use this matter to threaten him. The third prince is clever. You should know that if I expose this matter to the emperor, you won't be the only one facing death. Your mother, your brother, your mother's family will also be implicated. Su Yingxue had inflicted precise and ruthless control, exploiting his vulnerability. She had him by the throat and plunged the dagger deep into his heart. Chu Xiuwen remained on his knees before Chu Mingyuan, who slammed an inkstone onto him. You bastard! You poisoned Shengping to death and tried to frame Su Yingxue. How can I justify this to the people of Yu Kingdom? Father, spare me. Chu Xiuwen could only continue kowtowing and begging. Spare you? Go and ask the people of Yu Kingdom if they are willing to spare you. Chu Mingyuan pounded the dragon throne heavily. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.